joining Contra Costa Taxpayers Association for our briefing on the ballot measures coming up on the November ballot. I think most of you, I'm trying to get this on my camera, there we go. The general election manual, you should be getting the local one soon. I've read it. This is why I read about one book every 10 years, because I'm reading this stuff. And, you know, some places are disappointing, I will say, in their analyses. But it does give you more information and tells you where you can get additional information outside from what we offer to you. We are recording this so that people who miss it or come in late, they can replay it later. We should have it up on our website and on YouTube in about a day. Everybody will be muted except those who are speaking. And if you have a question, please use the chat feature. Our business manager, Denise, will be monitoring it, and I will monitor the chat feature as well as best I can while I am speaking and while others are speaking. And I'm going to try to keep this to 1 hour so that we don't lose anybody and we can honor people who have just their lunch hour to use here. One last thing is I'm going to be talking about the local measures first and then go to the state measures. And so I will start that right now. And I will start with the big one, Contra Costa County Measure X. CoCoTax has taken a position against Measure X, as I expect most of you know. On our website, you can see a very long PowerPoint, which is in large print and quite easy to access, of individual points. But I will highlight that this is not a COVID-driven need. The discussion on this ballot measure started close to 1.5 years ago when Contra Costa Transportation Authority was promoting Measure J. And a number of employee organizations went to the county supervisors opposing Measure J and said, we need a county tax. And that's how this started. So it doesn't have anything to do with COVID as much as the rest of us may think it does. And quite frankly, the coronavirus has changed a lot, but where it has really changed is for the ability of the people in this county and the state and the country and the nation to move about freely, to conduct all their businesses. You know, not every business can do their work from at home. It's hitting small businesses very hard. And as a general rule, CoCoTax this year thinks that any increase in taxes is, I can only put it politely by saying, a really bad idea, but it is invasive, it is hurtful, and there's no good reason for any of the tax measures to be imposed at this time. It's been a horrible year for so many people and businesses. This ain't the year. You may want to know that in 2 years, the county will have freed up $45 million in available funds when they pay off a pension obligation bond. So that's $45 million that they're free to spend starting in 2 more years. And currently there's a $33 million unallocated surplus. So they have quite a bit of money. And there are other tax measures on the ballot. Depending on how those play out, they may get even more from other directions. So we don't think that they need it. For those of you familiar with Senate Bill 1349 that was proposed by Senator Glazer and passed at the last minutes of the legislature session this year, California sales tax is 7.25%, and cities have a 2% cap on what sales tax they can impose. Still, of course, asking for approval of the voters. But under Senate Bill 1349, the county has an additional 2% cap on top of that, and transit has its own sales tax. They're taken out of that 2% cap, and the amount that they can increase is not noted. So assuming that you take the 7.25% for California, 2% for the cities if they start going up, some of them are already over their cap. The county is now eligible for 2%. Transit currently has a 1% and could go up. You're looking at 12.25% sales tax or more for cities in Contra Costa County that can be imposed. So that is the nutshell version why we're saying no on Measure X. It's not the time, there's not the need. We need to find other ways. Measures W, T, and Q are all local measures that do not have tax consequences directly to the populace, and we have not taken a position on those. Measure V in Concord, that is a permanent 1-cent sales tax, and I will say a number of the Concord administration and council were part of the driving force between Senate Bill 1349 was passed. They were really pushing for it so that they could extend their sales taxes in their city. They refer to it as an extension of an existing, but it is not. It is a permanent tax that will never go away. They need to find better ways to do it. Again, on our website, we have a more detailed note, but it's just not appropriate for this time. And there was an excellent piece in the Contra Costa Times written by, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name at the moment. It was 2 days ago. And Mike Yoder, if you can unmute and give me the name, I'd appreciate it. And Tom Barnage. Thank you, Michael. Tom Barnage on September 23rd wrote a commentary against Measure V. He's a former reporter with the Times and now is no longer with them. I believe he's retired, but he is a Concord resident, long time. And he wrote a beautiful commentary, very eloquent, and I suggest you all read it. And actually, I have it on our Facebook page for you to read. I'm in the process of posting that. Measure R, Orinda, increases the half-cent sales tax to 1 cent for the next 20 years. This is being promoted mostly as fire protection. However, there's only a very small portion of it that is for fire protection. It is, like Concord, a general tax. And whatever promises that they make now can be changed by future council members when circumstances change. I think right now there is a number of cities that are using fire safety as an issue, but it appears to be a smokescreen. Orinda has a current tax that's giving them $3.5 million every year, and that doesn't even expire until 2022. So they're leapfrogging that one. And fire hazards have been a long time issue for Orinda, but they're just taking the time now to look at it. We think it's a smokescreen. It is clear this is another one that just wants to increase the city coffers. They need to take another look. This is not the year to do it. Orinda business can't take the hit. It's tough on small businesses. And a 20-year tax when they're going to get more money in another 2 years just doesn't cut it for us. So again, we're saying no. Measure V in Richmond, horrible. The Richmond Council of Industries has taken the lead on this one with CoCoTax. It's complicated and it's very biased against especially small businesses. This taxes the gross business receipts of any business conducting their business in the city of Richmond. And it could be as much as 5% of your gross receipts. It will be a terrible hit for small business. And of course, the large businesses like Amazon, what they're thinking of, that's going to give them a real reason to go elsewhere. It does nothing to incentivize business to come to Richmond. It's a charter city. Selling real property there already has a big financial hit when you transfer it, when you sell your own property. And once again, especially minority owned and operated businesses and small businesses within the city of Richmond, they are really hurting this year because of coronavirus, not being able to conduct their doings as they see fit. It's been badly impacted. This is a terrible time to impose that on the small businesses, and it disincentivizes large businesses to come to Richmond and Contra Costa County to sell their wares and conduct their businesses. San Pablo is Measure S. That is another temporary tax, but their current temporary tax doesn't expire for another 2 years. San Pablo is a low-income community, again, with many small and minority-owned businesses that have been hard hit under the coronavirus issues, and it's gonna kill them. It's just gonna kill them. It's just not right. And a number of the residents with San Pablo are saying, you know, you're talking about this temporary crisis we had in 2008, and we took 10 years of a temporary tax to increase it. Well, in the last 8 years, you haven't solved it. Why not? It was supposed to be temporary, and they were planning on it going away and helping the businesses, and that's not going to happen if Measure S passes. So the 2012 emergency has passed, and they don't see that there is anything new other than the city wanting to increase the amount of money they have available. And again, being a general tax, it is allocated for whatever they say that may not hold up in years to come. Alrighty, now we will move to the state measures, and I would ask Mike Yoder to unmute, and also Bill Baker, if you will unmute, because I'll be calling on you in a minute. And I will say that Proposition 16, which ends the ban on affirmative action, does not fall within CoCoTax's mission. So we will not be making a position on that. But of course, we encourage everybody to do their homework and vote the way they see fit on that. Michael, could you please talk to us about Proposition 14, which deals with stem cell and medical research?
Sure, and it's a good one to start with because it's an easy one to oppose. So 16 years ago, California voters approved $3 billion for stem cell research in California, because at that point, the federal government had a ban on using federal funds for stem cell research. Now, 16 years later, that initial block of money has run out. And so the Stem Cell Agency is coming back to the voters to ask for, this time, an additional $5.5 billion. Having said all that, there's absolutely no reason to use taxpayer money for stem cell research at this point. That is a science that is, and a landscape that has greatly matured since then. There's all kinds of different forms of funding available, whether it be through the private sector, whether it be through the public. There's all kinds of federal grants available. There's, in the private side, there's venture capital, big pharma's in it. So no reason at all to use state funding for this, especially given the condition of the state's current budget. We just have much higher priorities. This is an easy one to oppose.
Thanks, Michael. Well written, well thought about, and I do know it's been well researched. Thank you. Bill Baker, you want to talk about the big one on the ballot, Prop 15?
Yes, this is probably the worst one on the ballot, especially from the Taxpayers Association viewpoint. This sets a precedent to break down Prop 13 as if lowering the voting requirements to 30% wasn't enough. This splits out commercial and industrial and business properties from homes. And the reason you do that is to raise money, and that's what they lead off. This is increasing funding sources for public schools. That's the way they label this. It's really the split roll. And the two things wrong with it is those business owners cannot fight back. They don't have a vote like homeowners do. And it's so easy for homeowners to say, well, you know, they're rich, they can pay for it, no problem. The second thing is once you start segmenting out Prop 13, who's next? You know, and we'll see this later in Prop 19, but it's a big mistake. And it does not help the state of California. If you took the business properties, let's say, I don't know if fourplexes are included, but a small business property, and boosted it from when they bought it till today, you can put people out of business. It's a tremendous increase. If they did it to homes, none of us would stay. Our homes are so overvalued, there's no way you could pay that property tax and retire. So do not ever fall for a split roll. There is no free lunch. Businesses don't pay those taxes. They have to pass them on or go out of business. So please tell all your friends, this is really evil. And we don't want to go down this road because next it'll be thee and me.
Thanks, Bill. And I will note, you had mentioned the title of it, Increases Funding for Public Schools, Community Colleges, and Local Government Services. However, my reading of it is that there's very little money that would actually go to the schools. It's almost a forgettable amount, but it's the amount of money that would go to other things is huge, and the impact on business would be critical.
Yeah, I didn't research this, but I assume the standard division of property tax would go to it. So if they doubled my property tax, all of the people that feast off of that tax would get a big boost. So schools would get it, cities would get it, counties would get it, I presume. But I haven't done my research. Maybe in there they've allocated it all to the state of California or to themselves for salary increases for legislators. I have no idea where the money goes, but I assume that it goes just the way your normal property tax goes.
I do have a comment from one of our listeners. On Prop 15, despite claim it exempts small businesses, most small businesses are renters. Renters typically pay property taxes under terms of their leases. So this will be a major tax increase for all businesses renting their space. Excellent point. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and I did read Prop 15 as much as I could stomach. It's the amount given to schools is smaller than the normal allocation, but I could not point you to it because of the length and breadth of that wording and how it reads, but that was my take on it. Also on our website, there's a link to the No on 15 and to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, who's taken the lead on that. And we're following their lead of No on 15, and they can explain it as well. Moving on to Prop 17, which deals with voting rights for felons on parole. I will take that one. Basically, when a felon is sentenced, the sentence is imposed on them. Many of them are plea bargains, and basically it's a deal that's been made. Well, if you believe that a deal is a deal, you've got to finish your sentence before you get more rights and before your rights are even restored to any extent. This would allow felons who have not yet finished their terms, whether it was a plea bargain or a sentence from the court, and they want to give them more voting rights. And we oppose that. The felons are literally not paying taxes while they're in custody. They are being supported by our tax dollars, and that's part of the system. We're not complaining about that. But we don't feel that it is appropriate for them to get the vote when at least they are still serving out their sentence. We could have another discussion whether or not felons should have voting rights, but this deals with specifically felons who have not yet finished their sentences. And of course, we're going to say no to that. We are also,
Madam President,
yes, Bill.
Mr. Bloomberg is spending between 15 and 30 million in Florida to try and change the law so felons can vote. I didn't know the former New York mayor was such a compassionate person. And I know he cares a lot about Florida. So there's a lot more to this issue than just being nice to felons. I had the prison work bill that allowed felons to work their way out of prison at halftime if they worked or went to school because it changed their behavior. This is up to no good, and so is Mr. Bloomberg. So please vote no. I know, I think we did take a position against it, but spread the word. This is a bad one.
Yeah. And I have a chat note from Steve. Thank you, Steve. To point out that in the title, it talks about voting rights for felons, but the title doesn't mention parole. So it's kind of tricky because parole is still part of the sentence, and that's what part of the consequences of a felony conviction. And that would not, and yeah, our Attorney General of the state of California made that move. So let me get back to, so keep me on track time-wise. The Prop 18 lowering the voting age to 17 if a 17-year-old would be 18 at the time of a general election. We are also saying no on that. We don't think a 17-year-old has the maturity to make that decision, even if they're going to be 18 on the general election. This is inappropriate, and 17-year-olds don't pay taxes. They are still part of their parents' care, and as other taxpayers, we should be concerned about a 17-year-old who is still a student, probably and hopefully in school, still learning. They're not ready for this responsibility, and they're not ready for this privilege, and voting is both of those. It's a responsibility and a privilege, and we don't believe that it belongs with literally a child, which they are at 17. Prop 19, that is the change to Proposition 13, and Bill, I will ask you to make your comments on that. I'm sorry, I should have asked you to unmute a minute ago. Proposition 19, I'll start it, extends some Prop 13 protections and limits others. Bill, could you talk about that for a minute?
Surely. The purpose of this is to allow seniors to move anywhere in the state and keep their 1974, in my case, or whatever their property tax rate is. Certain counties now in the state of California can opt in or opt out, let you move in with your Prop 13 benefits and not. I think Contra Costa has dropped out of that. I don't think they let anybody else in.
You are correct, Bill. Contra Costa opted out a couple of years ago. I think there's only about 7 counties in the state that are now accepting the Prop 13 transfer.
So this would force them to do it. 2 things wrong. One, you can move 3 times after you become the magic age, or if you're disabled or you're burned out in the fire, you can move 3 times. So it's not just once to your Sleepy Hollow rest home or wherever you're going. It's 3 more times. In order to pay for this, we have tightened the screws on business property. There's a lot of what they call exemptions and skullduggery in the law that businesses, as they always say, don't pay their fair share. So first they start off by screwing the business, and then they get to you and I. If we pass away and our kids live in Texas, as any rightful person should, or Nevada or Washington, where they don't have a 13% income tax, they would have to move back and move into the home in order to receive the benefits of Prop 13. So what's going to happen is the value of your property is going to be lessened to the heirs if they cannot move in. Why shouldn't they, if they wanted to turn it into a rental, the old family farm? In my case, I've been here 46 years, so the house is pretty old. Maybe they don't want to move in. Maybe they'd rather create a rental or another opportunity. It's their property, it's their inheritance, and this is just a way to stick it to them. Now, the realtors are supporting this because they failed 2 years ago to get this passed on a clean bill. A clean bill meaning we want to allow people to move within the state and keep their Prop 13 one time. And so they said, well, if you raise all these other taxes, and then we'll let you do that. And so they put all this garbage in here. This is dangerous, vote no. In fact, the mantra will be at the end, I'll mention this, the mantra should be vote no on all of these issues except for 20 and 22.
Thank you, Bill. And yeah, that is kind of what we're saying. Yes on 20 and 22 and no on any other tax measure that we're taking a position on. Prop 20, as you just mentioned, deals with sentencing changes, prison release, and DNA collection. We are supporting that, and Ryder, our vice president, was unable to join us today, and I have a statement from him indicating that Prop 20 seeks to amend Assembly Bill 109 from 2011 and Prop 47 2014, Prop 57 2016. A personal note here, I'm well familiar with Assembly Bill 109. I was a courtroom clerk when that passed, and I saw the changes that it made, and I am aware of a number of the flaws that were involved in it, and I know that Props 47 and 57 are trying to close those holes, but it's still a mess. And Proposition 20 will really help to fill in some of these gaps. Assembly Bill 109 served to move inmates convicted of certain non-serious, non-violent, or non-sexual offenses from California state prison system down to local jails. So that's people who would normally have been in the state prison system are moved to the local county jails. And it put the onus for supervising parolees on the counties instead of the state. And as you know, Contra Costa County has a very thin probation department that this is added to it. Proposition 20 will restrict parole opportunities by adding these crimes back to the list of violent felonies for which they deserve. If you saw the list of what they consider non-serious, non-violent, and non-sexual, you'd be pretty shocked. It also makes parole less likely by requiring the parole board to consider additional factors such as mental condition and circumstances surrounding the crime before granting parole. The proposition also allows the prosecutor to order a review of the parole board's decision. Prop 20 again allows prosecutors to charge certain types of theft and fraud crimes as either felonies or misdemeanors. We call them wobblers because some theft offenses and burglaries are not as serious as others in terms of the dollar amount or how it happened. So maybe that might be a misdemeanor, but some are so offensive that they deserve to be felonies. Proposition 47 mandated that these would be misdemeanors only, and we believe that was a very wrong move. Prop 20 creates both serial crime and organized retail crime as two new types of crime in the penal code, chargeable as either felonies or misdemeanors, and hopefully this will help out the business community. Prop 20 mandates that people convicted of certain crimes that were originally classified as wobblers prior to 2014, which is domestic violence, prostitution with a minor. These would be mandatory to submit to collection of DNA. And I think anybody who watches TV on any crime show knows how important DNA has become. It is not the only way to convict someone of a crime or to tell who perpetrators are. You know, fingerprint technology is still commonly used, as are a number of other things, but DNA is one tool in the in crime fighting, and it definitely helps. And Ryder's final comment was, while the passing of Proposition 20 will almost certainly serve to increase state prison inmate populations, and some costs associated with that. It will also make our communities and schools much safer by keeping dangerous criminals behind bars for the length of their sentences. The cost is not calculable. Homeowners and vehicle insurance premiums could decrease as property and robberies and burglaries decrease. I would agree with that. Health insurance premiums, copays, and deductibles can go down with fewer assaults and batteries. The enormous costs associated with the investigation and tracking of repeat offenders will be drastically reduced, as we will have more DNA samples on file, which will make apprehending recidivists significantly less costly. I think Ryder did a wonderful job of encapsulating this, and there's more information again on our website, but we are certainly supporting law enforcement and the administration of justice, and we are supporting Proposition 20. 21 is government authority to enact rent control on residential property. Apparently, Sacramento did not get the message the last time this was on the ballot, and people said no. And CoCoTax continues to say no. Let the free market rule. Let it do its job. We do not need government overreach to tell us what our landlords can and can't charge. Some landlords may only have 1, 2, 3 pieces of property, and they may be making mortgage payments. Coronavirus and the restrictions on that to landlords has been terrible, because they have not been able to collect rent with coronavirus exceptions or restrictions for many months. And there are still bills to pay, mortgages to keep up. And we don't need the state clearly stepping into the rent issue at this time, frankly, or at any other. CoCoTax is against rent control. I don't care if you call it rent control, tenants' rights, or whatever. Thank you, Jean. And it's hard, especially when a small business person, it'll affect them badly to try to make up the losses from coronavirus. And our commercial renters are going to take a huge hit. I do know of one very wealthy landowner who, actually several, who have removed all their California property because of the intrusion of rent control, and they're taking their business elsewhere while we suffer back here on the coast. 22, classification for transportation drivers as independent contractors. This was Assembly Bill 5. Assembly Bill 5. Basically, this is from Lyft, Uber, and a number of other professions that were told they could not be independent contractors anymore. Their employer now has to pay them benefits and be on payroll and all that. And it greatly limits people who want to be independent businessmen and women from doing so. I do know that I have a niece who is a reporter, freelance, and there's very little she can do right now because nobody wants to hire more employees and pay the benefits. She's quite happy and willing as an independent contractor running her own business, and she can't do it under this. So we have a strong no against Prop 22. People should be able to have their own businesses. They should be able to manage their own finances, and they don't need the state telling them that they have to go to work for somebody else.
Sue, this is a strong yes.
I would agree, Bill. Thank you. You know, there's fewer and fewer reasons to conduct business in California. This doesn't help by saying, you know, support 22. I'm sorry, I did not. I said no, didn't I? The 22 is very important so that we incentivize people to do business in this state and really help them out. So please support Prop, like we said, Prop 20 and 22 are yes, and the rest that we've positioned ourselves with are all no's. 23.
Oh, this is Tom. You
Yes, Tom.
know, something kind of funny I just share with the group in case you missed it. Willie Brown writes a column in the San Francisco Chronicle uh, for, and whether he's quite a character, as we all know, but he had to stop writing his column because he was impacted by what Prop 22 will, and he complained to the legislature.
AB 5.
Sorry, I'm laughing, but he complained to the legislature that, hey, you guys cut me out. And he was actually able to get a bill through and have the governor sign it to exempt columnists. And but it's, and I think I was reading it today, there are now 100 exceptions to Prop 22, which is just outrageous. So yeah, I enthusiastically and strongly support Proposition 22, but you know, you don't pass legislation and then make 100 exemptions. So it's just really ill-concealed, and it really hurts a lot of people trying to make a buck in the gig economy and everything. Like was that your niece that is in that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Same example. So.
Well said, Tom. Well said. I couldn't agree more. It's either ACA 5 or Assembly Bill 5 that started this mess.
Yeah, Assembly Bill 5 from a legislator, I think her last name is Gonzalez. She's from San Diego.
I think so, yeah. And then there's been a lot of backpedaling, exempting certain ones. It's ridiculous. You know, let's give the power back to the people to conduct their own business and say yes on 22.
Hey, Sue?
Yes, Bill?
Not to hit a mosquito with a pile driver, but if they get aggressive and move this on, realtors, stockbrokers, I don't work for TD. I'm an independent contractor, if you will. If they get aggressive and start applying this, you'll get 50% of the population. So
wow.
Let's kill it now. Make sure everyone votes yes. Tom's absolutely right.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'm pushing that on our Facebook page too, so that people pay really close attention to the 2 yeses. Are very important. Prop 23 authorizes state regulation of kidney dialysis clinics. Again, here's that words, state regulation. We took a position against that in, I think it was March, and apparently the message didn't get through because it's back again. This would, and I'm sure you've seen commercials against Prop 23 on TV, and they're well taken because this will drive up the cost of dialysis for those who need it. It will drive up the cost of health care, which I think is an important topic to all of us. And I'm not going to go too far into that because we said no to this once before. We should be saying no again. See this time if they get the message. There's no reason to have state regulation of dialysis and reduce the options for people who need it. It's a life-saving measure for people who need dialysis. And this would cut into their options badly. Jim, would you, Jim Pezzaglia, could you unmute yourself? I'd like you to talk about Proposition 24, which is a change in consumer privacy laws.
Right. Can everybody hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is called an amendment of the privacy laws, consumer privacy laws, but it's almost a rewrite of the privacy laws. There's more wordsmithing and bold print than there is remaining from the bill that's in effect right now. The effect of the changes are to really put further restrictions on businesses in the collection and use and retention and sharing of information, but it also increases the cost of government administration dramatically. They're talking about tens of millions of dollars per year in agency work, which will require more employees with lots more time spent at a great expense to the public, and it's only for one state. And it's CoCoTax's position that this is really a nationwide issue and a nationwide problem. It affects mainly the interstate commerce corporations that are large enough to even do this type of collection or retention or sharing. And it really should be a place where Congress should act on behalf of all the states and not have 50 different laws in different states with just a quagmire in trying for a small, a medium-sized or large business to handle the workload. So we oppose that measure.
Thank you, Jim. That's perfect. And Mark Fernwood, I'll ask you to unmute yourself. And Proposition 25 changes the money bail system. And we're strongly opposed to this. I'll add some comments after Mark, because this is one that happens to be something I'm quite passionate about. Mark, talk to us.
Yes. Hi, can everyone hear?
Yes.
Great. Okay. California cash bail system works by having Superior Court judges requiring criminally charged defendants pay a cash bail to allow them to be released prior to trial. The promised appearance is, when the promised appearance is made, the full bail is actually returned at that point. So now, what is so very, very important about this is that if the criminal doesn't, or the charge does not appear, his bail becomes forfeit. And most of the time, the bail is not paid by the defendant himself, it's paid by a bail bondsman. And the bail bondsman normally charges somewhere around 10% of the total amount of bail for the fee to actually do this. Now, it turns out that actually the bail bond system is an extremely important means of actually capturing defendants to flee. There are approximately 30,000 defendants each year that flee their trial, and actually a bounty is posted by the bail bondsman, and bail bounty hunters, also called bond agents, go out and to capture these guys, and they have limited policing powers, and they can go across straight lines. They can do a lot of things that actually police cannot do. So it's a very important means of recapturing about 30,000 felons or charged with felonies each year. So I certainly think it's a very bad idea.
Thanks, Mark. And I'll expand on that just a little bit. That currently there is a bill going that has passed the legislature, and this ballot measure would stop it. That's why it's kind of hard when you read it, like, should this have been a yes or a no, a support or oppose? The proper answer is oppose it. It's a no. It will stop this system of anybody that comes into court being released on their own recognizance, no matter how dangerous they are. Bail is not just for felons, it's also for misdemeanors. Because there are some misdemeanors that are pretty serious. Some domestic violence things are appropriate for bail, especially when it's a husband and wife thing. It can be very dangerous if the one party does not have to put anything up. Just, okay, fine, here's your next court date, come again and see us. Thank you, Steve. He has a note here. In New York, the elimination of cash bail led to a 22% increase in crime. I can't speak for the judges of Contra Costa Superior Court, but this certainly ties their hands if Prop 25 passes, and they will have to release people without bail, and they're doing a lot of it now. And I feel very bad for the sheriff's office, because they're between the district attorney and public safety, and it's very different. I have another short note here that says, from Michael Moore again, State Supreme Court has just issued an order that judges have to consider the charged person's ability to pay when setting bail. That was supposedly the main reason for the supposed no bail reform. I can tell you that judges have always been aware and cognizant of any number of factors when they're deciding on bail. Should it be the standard amount? Should it be more? Should it be less? You know, and they have to take public safety into account as well. It's not easy, but the idea of bail wasn't just to ensure that somebody would come back to court instead of taking a hike. And that's where your bail bondsmen really come in, because they go after them and bring them back in if somebody does jump bail. But also public safety is important. You may have someone who has a bad record, who's bound and determined to do harm, and society needs to be protected, and that is part of the job of setting bail appropriately. So we are strongly opposed to the change in the system. We do not want this to go through. We want to let our judges and the bail schedules to remain in effect for public safety, and they will consider each one individually, just like they do every other case, and forget this across the board. Hi, nice to meet you, here's your charges, and go away. So that's it. We are now under the hour mark. We're doing well. Does anybody have any last thoughts or questions that need to be answered on any of the ballot measures? As I said, we'll be posting this on YouTube and on our website. So if there's something you wanted to say, now's the time. And I'll let you think for just a moment. I will say, if you're currently not a member of CoCoTax, you should be. You can join us online at CoCoTax.org. Or you can give us a call at the office, send us an email, whatever. We welcome your participation. We frequently don't always agree on things, but we talk them over, and I can personally guarantee that many of our members at CoCoTax on the executive team have spent hundreds of hours researching these ballot measures and others. And we've been lobbying and talking in support or in opposition to any number of measures at the legislative level. This year, I've testified before the Assembly and the Senate a couple of times. I've sent enough letters to cramp my fingers. So this is what we do, but we need your support. So donations are accepted, but your membership too. It's important that you say you stand with us and be part of our organization. I am not getting any more questions. Yeah, nothing else coming up on the chat. So at this time, I'll close. My name is Sue Pricco. I'm the current president of Contra Costa Taxpayers Association. Again, I want to thank you all for joining in, and for the ones that spoke on behalf of the various propositions and measures, either for or against. I want to thank you for your participation. And I will leave you with my wish for everybody to please be happy, be safe, and be well informed. We hope to see you all again soon.